Let's talk about how to model information artifacts in a business process. An information artifact is a document. It could either be a physical document like an invoice on a piece of paper, or it could be an electronic document, like for example a claim application that is submitted online. But it could be more in general any business object that is manipulated by our business process, like for example a parcel, a box, a pack, a stack of documents. Okay, let's see how information artifacts are modeled in BPMN by considering again our order-to-cash process. And now analyzing this process from the viewpoint of the information artifacts, or business objects more in general, that are manipulated by the activities of this process. So we know that we have a document, the purchase order itself, that does trigger new instances of this process, and then once we receive the purchase order, it is used as input to the first activity, checking stock availability. Now, based on the outcome of this check, the status of the document is updated, either to approved or to rejected. So, for example, activity confirm order would take the checked purchase order and change its state into approved, whereas activity reject order will take the checked purchase order and change its status into rejected. If the order is approved, activity emit invoice will emit an invoice, and as a result of shipping goods, a shipment notice will be produced that needs to be sent to the customer. Then activity archive order will take the order as input and store it. Now, BPMN uses an element called data object to model information artifacts. The data object captures an artifact required as input or produced as output by an activity. It can be physical or electronic. The data object is represented by a document with the top right corner being folded over. For example, activity emit invoice requires a purchase order as input. We see that we link this data object to the activity with a dashed arrow that is incident to the activity, and then this activity emit invoice produces an invoice indeed as output. So in this case, an output data object is indicated with a document being linked with an arrow outgoing from the activity to indicate that something is being produced. Now, another element that BPMN uses is the data store. So the data store is a place to be able to persist data objects beyond the duration of a particular process instance. So it is used by an activity to store documents, data objects, so artifacts in general, or to retrieve data objects. For example, we can use it to model a place to store physical artifacts, such as a file cabinet to store invoices on paper, or as a system storage unit, like a database management system, that can be used to retrieve clients' information. Okay, coming back to our example, let's see how we can enrich this example by means of data objects on the one end and data stores where needed on the other end. So let's take the first activity, check stock availability. So as we said, this activity requires as input the purchase order, so we take the purchase order as input. But in order to check the availability, we need to read some information from some system that is available within the organization, the warehouse database in this case. So we check the availability of the items contained in the purchase order that we read as input. So as a result of this activity, we produce again the purchase order document, of which we have changed its state into checked. So now we have checked the purchase order. Now this document can be used as input to confirm order, in which case the purchase order state will be changed into approved, or reject order. Continuing on with our example, activity sent invoice requires the purchase order as input to understand what information needs to go into the invoice and produce an invoice as output. And similarly, ship goods needs the purchase order as input and will produce a shipment notice as output. Finally, activity archive order takes as input the approved purchase order and stores that into an orders database, which is a data store used as output to this activity.